You two are up anyway, aren't you?
Yeah.
Yeah. Point about the county road right of way, that would be wetland.
Well, and it didn't come out that
And
way.
it didn't come out that way.
But they got everything out. To make this work, so I guess it's 9 o'clock. 9 o'clock, I'll call the county board to order, begin with flag pledge.
I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Beth, will you do the roll call?
Sure. Commissioner Schlangen.
Here.
Commissioner Johnson. Commissioner Pop.
Here.
Commissioner Gopinski.
Here.
Commissioner Heinen.
Here, turn your mics on, please.
Approve or amend the agenda? Any additions, corrections?
Yes, we have one addition. Chris Byrd would like to add the
lease agreement regarding the Eisenschenk property. We just added this as last item. Chris says on our agenda at 9:35. The other documents that Beth gave you from our bond advisor Northland just go with the item that's later in your meeting on the refunding of the tax abatement bonds. So if we could add Chris's item, please.
Mr. Chair, I'll move to approve the amended agenda as presented.
Second.
Motion been made and seconded to approve the agenda as presented. There,
No, it looked like it was just from the earlier. Yeah.
okay. Oh, I missed the county board announcement, so I'll do that now. The county board meetings are broadcast live and video recorded on YouTube. Please refrain from speaking from the audience area and come to the podium so the viewers can hear you. The county board observes the Roberts Rules of Order for its meetings, so please obtain the county board chair's consent before addressing the county board. Public comments are generally reserved for open forum segments of or public hearing. However, public comments on other agenda items may be allowed at the discretion of the chair. As we begin today's meetings, please turn your phone to vibrate. And we did open forum. So we have consent agendas, numbers 1 through 3. Does anybody wish for any of them to be pulled for further discussion?
I'll move approval of the consent items 1 through 3.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to approve the consent agenda items 1 through 3. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Roxanne from the Department of Development.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
Picture here.
Is your mic on?
Now it is.
All right.
You're on it, Commissioner Heinen.
I wanted to hear that echo. That's how I know the mic is on.
There you go.
Do you want me to share this on the go-to or just leave it?
Let's see who we have on. That's up to you, Roxanne. Yeah, I mean, you're familiar with that, do that for us, right? Yeah. Go ahead.
Okay. What you have before you is the plat of Baldwin Acres. This particular plat is in Watab Township along River Road and Riverview Loop. This property was previously platted, I believe around 2013 as Shorewood Acres. What I have shown on here, it's a little bit confusing, but the blue lines are the original platted lots. So you see lot 2 and 3 of Shorewood Acres. The owner, David Baldwin, is proposing to create 3 lots out of the existing 2 lots. Now, this was part of the original plan back when Shorewood Acres was during the preliminary plat process. However, there was issues with lot 2, the proposed lot 2 here facing River Road, not having, for one, not having direct access onto River Road due to safety concerns and spacing requirements, but also because it would have been considered a through lot. Now, a through lot is something that has frontage on 2 different roads. So it would have frontage on River Road, and then because of the access necessary, it would have frontage on Riverview Loop. In working with the property owners and the surveyor, it was the plan now is to move forward with an easement. So there actually is an ownership access onto Riverview Loop. Rather, there is an easement. We did provide the property owner with the option of going for a variance because I think in this situation it makes sense to have a through lot so that we're not placing access in a location that is possibly a safety concern. So with that, because this is two or more lots, it did go through Watab Township. Watab Township did approve the plat through their subdivision process. They have provided for the easement to Riverview Loop, and then they have vacated the drainage and utility easements between the existing lots 2 and 3 of Shorewood Acres. So with that, Planning Commission did approve the plat back in September. But other than that, staff sees no major concerns with this property, and we are working with the property owner and the surveyor to tee this up for printing and approval.
Okay. So we can begin the public hearing?
Yeah.
Okay. The next item on our agenda is a public hearing for Baldwin Acres. And we've heard we'll open the public hearing. Before we open the public hearing, and we've already heard from county staff reports. So we'll now, is the applicant, or is the applicant present, or is representative here?
I am his representative.
Okay.
Commissioners, Kevin Egan is my name. I got a call 3 minutes ago from Dave saying he is running late. I don't know that we need him anyway, but if need be, he will come later. Otherwise, I can handle any questions. I think as Roxanne has noted, we've gone through, this is meeting number 4 now, if you count the township ones as well. And I think we're set to go.
Okay. So we're comfortable with moving forward
I
then?
think so. I think everyone
Okay.
is at this point.
All right, we will now open the public hearing. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to address the county board on this agenda item? If so, please come to the podium, give your name and address.
And I checked online, there isn't anybody that's
Okay.
on staff.
I will have final call for anyone wishing to address the county board. Seeing none, the public hearing is now closed. Are there any emails, letters, or communications? I think you already covered that, to be to the record.
No, Watab approved it through their
Alright.
process, so.
Has the department received any comments or concerns from state agencies, cities, townships on this agenda?
No.
No. If any official action was required by the affected township, was there action? No.
Well, the township did approve it through their
Okay.
process, yep, and they did vacate the easements that were necessary.
Okay. The county board will now have time for questions and staff discussion. As a reminder to the audience, the public hearing portion is closed. Is there any comments, questions or comments from board members before we take action on this agenda?
Mr. Chair, as Roxanne commented, Planning Commission reviewed this a couple weeks ago, and it was pretty straightforward, and Watab had chimed in, so we were good to go to recommend it to the full county board for approval. And with that, I will make a motion to approve this minor plat entitled Baldwin Acres as presented.
Second.
Motion's been made and second. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Motion's been made and seconded to approve the Baldwin Acres of plat, and now is there any other discussion?
Okay, I have a question.
Sure.
For the person that has the lot 2 that has the existing house, he will have access to 55 on that southern border there?
Are you right here? Or where, I'm sorry,
Okay, you've got that area marked, how does he get out to that,
are we talking about lot 2?
Riverside Drive, right?
Lot 2 will use this easement here to get out on Riverview Loop. They will not have access to River Road.
Okay,
Okay. Satisfy your question?
yes. Just wondering how they're getting out of there.
Well, it's explained that the easement goes with lot number 3, I believe.
2.
Or 2, but it's on lot 3, right?
Correct.
Okay. Any other discussion, questions or discussion before I call the motion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep, thanks.
Thank you.
Discussion on cleanup efforts at the site of the former King's Inn.
Okay, all right, so, as we all know, the King's Inn burned down. I'm just gonna quickly pass out a memo that I couldn't create it until about yesterday because I wanted to have as much information for you guys as possible.
And just to note, I noticed Sheriff Heck is with us, and also I
Thanks for
believe
that.
Michelle Myers, so for any questions that you all may have of them. Thanks, Roxanne.
Okay, so in a situation like this, this would be treated as a solid waste issue. I don't know that we would get into the violation status and immediately. We definitely get into or see situations like this happen, and generally within a few weeks it gets cleaned up. So we don't generally go out and issue a letter stating that the property's in violation only days or weeks after it has occurred, especially in a situation like this where there was an active investigation for a time being. It did turn out to be an intentionally set fire. So we understand that there's probably discussions happening with insurance companies, maybe attorneys, and so it pushes back that timeline on when it could be cleaned up. Now, once our office does get involved, we look at our solid waste ordinance, and I believe that it was provided as part of your packet of information. And so it talks about waste accumulations, time to clean that up, et cetera. So solid waste and or construction demolition debris shall not be stored for more than 30 days. That's on what's shown as page 5 here, 5.7A. So technically, we're not even past that 30-day mark. In situations like this, it can go, I think it's usually around 60 days is when we ask them to have it cleaned up. Again, we're still fresh into this situation. I know there was a concern about asbestos, there's concern about runoff, and there's concerns about the safety of the public. We did have David Barsotti go out there as the Benton County building inspector rather than having Nancy Scott, who's the WATAB inspector. We felt it was more appropriate to have the county building inspector assist us through this process. When he visited the site, he did not see evidence of asbestos. And furthermore, he did contact Jason Fleming, the fire chief and building official in Sauk Rapids. Jason also indicated that he did not suspect that there was asbestos on site. Now, that doesn't mean there isn't asbestos. You would have to test that. But I think we have gone as far as we should go at this point for detecting any sort of hazardous substance. Again, that's not something that we would generally do unless there was reasonable suspicion on a site, and that would be a cost to the county to go out and do that. So at this time, there's no reason to suspect that. I did contact the DNR, Minnesota Pollution Control Agency, and the Minnesota Department of Health to see if there was any resources that they could provide us, whether financially or in man hours, anything that could help us protect that site. Their response was essentially that the county is in the best position to supply that and get reimbursed for it. It was really a dead end in this situation. No matter how many times I was that annoying person asking the question in multiple different ways to see if I could get a different answer. No. So we're kind of in a stalemate right now on this situation. I think there still is probably a concern about runoff. If we get a good rainfall, it could potentially go into the lake. And with that, we did notify the property owner, asking him to put up some sort of silt fence, something to protect the water. He has until October 11th. We have not heard anything back from him. And this is one of those cases that it may and likely will fall back on Watab Township to assist us with putting in some sort of erosion control because they are an MS4 and they are responsible for erosion control. So I think I would probably have a deeper conversation with Michelle to make sure that that would be the appropriate process. But once that, assuming we move forward with that process, that site may sit there for some time, just because we do need to provide them with a chance to clean up the site. As far as going out there and protecting the site, putting up some barriers, I don't know where we stand on that, and that may be something that's maybe answered a little further from either Michelle or Troy. But again, this is a private site, and we would not generally go out and put up barriers. This would all be at the expense of the county. We could assess those costs back to them. Getting into the cost side of things, I did research through state statute. 400.08 is the solid waste service fee that we collect. Now, I know there is a significant amount of money in that fund. While it would be ideal to use those funds for solid waste cleanup, it specifically dictates within statute that that money is strictly for solid waste facilities, for their operation, their cleanup, anything that goes along with the solid waste facilities. And then for programs such as amnesty days, things that support the cleanup of the county, recycling, and all that. In speaking with several other counties that collect this similar fee, not one of them felt that that cleanup of a private site was an appropriate use of those funds. It's of my professional opinion that those solid waste funds are not to be used for the cleanup of a private site. So any abatement of this property, should we move forward, would be assessed back to the county. And I think it's worth taking into consideration that this property is on the line of tax forfeiture. So the county may get stuck with those costs either way. I don't know if Michelle or Troy has anything additional to add.
Michelle does,
If
I see.
anyone has any questions, I can certainly answer them.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Heinen?
Michelle, so understanding this, we cannot go in and put up a silt fence barrier right away until after October 11th?
Probably, unless there's an absolutely immediate threat of harm, I don't think that we have the ability to enter private property and put up structures.
Okay, and then after October 11th, if the landowner has not contacted us at that point in time, could we go in right away and put up a silt fence?
We would have to look at the legality of that. What I would recommend is at least we make contact, try verbal contact with the property owner to see if he would be amenable to the county doing that.
Thank you.
Anything else? Any other questions?
Mr. Chair,
Go ahead.
I was by that property the other evening. Was it the state of Minnesota or the county, or somebody put road closed signs up to the entrance of that property? There's barriers there now.
Mm-hmm. There has been, I think, since,
It looks like there's a barrier that's just turned.
yeah, they probably wanted to get in to go fishing.
I would assume that barriers were put up when you guys were there as fire department, right?
I don't believe so. I know that there was arson signs and stuff, but I think it was still open, but I went by there a week ago and it was open yet.
I was just there a couple nights ago and it was closed tight.
Yeah.
Okay.
May I ask a question? Are there concerns about the public accessing the site for souvenir hunting? Is that still a concern? And if so, in addition to the silt fence, should we pursue some sort of fencing around the site as a whole? That's probably more a question for Troy
Or Michelle.
or Michelle.
I think that there is still that concern about people showing up to pick through for souvenirs. We had a suspicious person call there just yesterday. So I believe that is a concern, and I think that would be a good motivation for us to get this resolved as soon as possible.
Mr. Chair.
Go ahead.
My concern is if this is this close to tax forfeiture and if the runoff could become a problem in the lake, that would ultimately fall on the county then at that point, would it not? After the forfeiture?
After probably, but that's quite a ways away.
A
I
year?
believe it's, correct me if I'm wrong, it was May, right? Next May is when it would go forfeiture, is May.
Yeah, I'm not
I think I seem to recall May of next year, so a ways off.
So then once it's forfeited, it actually belongs back, it belongs to the state at that point, but we are just the administrators for the property at that point.
Okay.
But the timeline, once it goes forfeiture, is still another couple of years, ain't it? By the time we get,
I think Monty's correct, I think it's next spring.
no, but I mean,
Oh.
once May rolls around, then they have the right to pay the taxes, and then there's a year to wait after they have an auction or whatever they do.
No, once
No?
it's officially forfeit, then we can proceed forward with
Oh,
that.
okay.
Yeah,
But I mean, in my book, it should be cleaned up before May.
Oh, absolutely.
Mr. Chair, we can't ever foresee the future, but let's just say that we get 2 feet of snow this winter. All that runoff, where's that gonna go when the ground is still frozen?
We know.
Yep. And
And if I can just interject very quickly, I don't think there's, or how do I say this? I think we understand that there is that concern with the runoff, and that's something that at a minimum, we would probably like to do if the property owner doesn't move forward with that. But that might be the extent of it for some time.
Okay.
Just to quickly, Michelle reached out to the city of St. Cloud to ask them how they handled the press bar with that. It was, I believe the property owners attempted to start cleaning that up and it just wasn't possible at, the cost of it, the amount of time. And so the city worked out an agreement with the property owners, hired a contractor to go in there and clean that up. But it was 6 months after the fire occurred. So there's a significant timeline in there.
So a follow-up question for, Roxanne, when would you predict would be the earliest time the county could actually go into this private property and clean up the site and remove all the debris? When would be the earliest?
He was given 60 days for full cleanup from our letter. If we go after, if we look at this after that 60-day mark and then start conversations about agreements to clean that up, gosh, Michelle, I don't know if you have any timelines. We're still several months out.
Okay.
I would concur with that. We have processes that we have to follow, so we've given him 60 days now, which is aggressive for a situation like this. But then if we are unable to get agreements with all of the property owners to have the county go in so that we can assess those taxes back, then we have to follow a court process. And as a part of that court process, an order needs to be made by the county board. It has to have certain requirements in that order, including a time frame for cleanup, which when I was reading through case law, you saw a lot of 60-day time periods. So it's a process, it takes time, it requires court action if we cannot get consent from the property owner, and, unfortunately, time.
Commissioner Heinen?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I'm just gonna ask this question and whoever can answer this. So if the property owner contacts us, is this something we should probably address with him right away, that he could probably join with an agreement with us and him?
Yes, and actually in the letter, I did state that he can contact us at any time and we can discuss options for the county assisting, however that cost is obviously going to be assessed back to the property.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. So that would be the quickest.
Well, and that's why I wanted to state that question, so that he knows that we're willing to assist and help him.
Yes.
There will be a cost, of course, but it would be cleaned up sooner than later.
So I don't know if this is from Michelle. So if he sees the cost and he sees the the back taxes and that are due, could he just come forward and say, you know, I'll sign this property over to the county?
I suppose you probably could.
I mean, you know, it looks like we got a lot of trouble brewing here, so.
Although technically, and I want to clarify, the property, when it goes tax forfeiture, goes to the state. It doesn't go to the county.
Correct.
The county's interest is managing the property, so the state would have to be on board with that. So
Okay.
I guess I can't really speak to that matter.
Okay.
That's a mess. That's a mess.
Any other questions? Well, Roxanne, we know you'll stay on top of this.
Yeah, take care
Yep,
of it.
just understanding that it will take time.
Thank you for the
It
update.
won't be cleaned up tomorrow.
Right.
Right. Thanks for your time.
Yep.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Nadine?
Good morning.
Good morning.
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 Mr. Chair, if I could, Nadine, while she's getting ready, I just wanna, I know Commissioner Kapinski would agree with me, I'll give you a little shout out for your help with, the townships with their ARPA applications.
I agree.
You spent some time on that last Friday and I really appreciate that, thank you.
Thank
Yes.
you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. After the township meeting on Thursday night, I just kind of felt compelled to reach out to those two townships. I understand the importance of it, and I was moved by the presentation. And so we do have close relationship with all the township boards and clerks. We work with them a lot during the election process. So I felt comfortable just kind of calling them on the carpet. And it worked out to the benefit of the whole county. So yay.
Absolutely. Yes.
Well-
Thank you very much.
When you
Yeah,
heard,
you're very welcome.
when you heard the executive director from the townships, I mean, he was floored that we only had 2 townships that didn't apply.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe we should call him and tell him now we got 100% applied. That's what he
Yes.
said.
Yes.
I saw some statewide statistic, only 60% of
Yeah.
Manistee townships have
Wow.
applied so far.
And I mean,
And today is the day,
today,
Well, and if
well, unless they extend it.
unless they do.
And if you remember right, that money could come back around whoever didn't apply, so maybe some of these townships that did apply could apply for more,
Maybe.
Yeah.
if the need is there.
I mean, that, you know, I did tell Frank Hard he's the district director, thanks for bringing him, because he really
Yep.
laid it out in simple man's
Certainly did, yeah.
terms.
Just to hand out a little quick update for DMV, Commissioner Johnson just wanted me to give you guys an update, so I did print
Thank
this
you.
out this morning. Yeah, I did have one little tough township person on Friday, but it worked out in the county's favor, and he was pretty direct with me, so I tried to give him a little more fluff, and he basically said, enough with the fluff, let's get it done. And I said, all right, let's do it. So, yeah, so it was good. So, an update on where our DMV is sitting as of the end of September. So the handout that I provided to you, Monty, I'm sorry, I overlooked giving one to you. So we are sitting at about that very last box on the right-hand side is kind of my projection of where we're gonna end at the end of the year. So the actual numbers on the left of that box, we are sitting at about 148,000 in revenue from the DMV to this point. We have 3 months to go. We do average approximately 15 to 16,000 per month. So I'm confident we're gonna end our year really close to that 200,000 mark. 2020 year, we ended up at 195,000, as you see. That was not a typical year. So I don't really like to look at that year as a gauge or a comparison, but it is included there for you to see the numbers. As you recall, we were closed for quite a while. Was it 6 or 8 weeks, Monty? Yeah, and so our sales during those months, were completely unpredictable. So if you take a good look at 2019, I think that's a good comparison. So we did end up at the end of 2019 with $190,000 in revenue generated from the Benton County License Center. I think we're going to come pretty close to that, or maybe a little bit over. As of today's date, we have gained 2 new dealers. So we do have 2 new dealers added to our list of dealers. I believe we're up to about 9 now. And we're working toward reaching out to some other dealers that are in the county and trying to gain their business. And so that's something that we're going to work on the rest of this year going into the new year. We are currently down to 2 full DMV staff at this time. We have been operating with 2 full staff since the beginning of September. We have 1 full-timer that is currently out of the office. So we helped just over 1,400 customers in the month of September. So just to give you some stats of where we're sitting. Does anyone have any questions regarding the license center for me?
Questions? Compliments? I guess you did a great job.
Thank you for the info,
Commissioner
appreciate it.
Johnson?
Thank you,
Yeah.
no, this is what I was looking for, just a brief overview.
Brief
so
overview.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Yeah, I'll try to do that for you guys periodically, every 3 months or so, or whenever it's requested. So thank you for that.
70%.
So the next item that I just prepared a PowerPoint for you. Oh yeah, it's up there. Can't miss that. This is just a broad overview of redistricting. It's just really meant to be informational. Preparing the PowerPoint certainly helped me as I am new to the redistricting process. So we've only had 1 training with the state so far on redistricting. The manual is 80 pages. So some light reading that I haven't gotten all the way through yet. But I did prepare the PowerPoint. I thought it would just give a broad overview to everyone that is not familiar with redistricting. I know Commissioner Pop has been through it before, so he's helped me answer some of my questions as well. So I'm just gonna plug through this. Alrighty, thanks. Okay, so we're coming up on redistricting in the spring of the 22 year. So what is redistricting? So redistricting is the purpose of redrawing those boundary lines after the election districts are done in the United States and after the completion of the decennial census. So every 10 years we get to go through redistricting. Exciting, fun. The purpose of that redistricting is to ensure that the people in our district are equally represented. So we have 5 commissioners. We want to make sure that you're spread out equally throughout the county and everybody is being equally represented. So that's the purpose of the redistricting. The good news is the House of Representatives for the state of Minnesota, there were no changes. So Minnesota still retains its 8 seats in the House of Representatives, so no changes there. So who does redistricting and when? So we touched a little bit on this at that township meeting the other night. So it all starts with legislature. So they're the beginning phases. They're gonna do their part of the redistricting, and after we get the results from them, then it moves to the city and townships to look at their redistricting. And then the final piece of the puzzle, of course, is the commissioners' redistricting. The school board doesn't need to redistrict because Benton County School Board is an at-large board, so they're not required to do it. So we'll be the last ones to get to draw lines based on what happens at legislature and with those cities and towns. So congressional and legislative boundaries can go anywhere. They can do and put those boundaries wherever they would like. And they don't need to follow any municipalities' boundaries. So the precinct boundaries must follow the congressional and legislative district boundaries. So after they've determined their boundaries, we're forced to follow those boundaries for our redistricting. So cities and townships, when they redistrict after the federal and state plans have been completed, they must establish their boundaries. They'll need to pass a resolution. Even if they're not changing anything, they'll still need to pass a resolution on their new boundaries. And the cities and townships must designate their polling places within 30 days of establishing those new boundaries. And then after the redistricting is complete with the cities and townships, they'll provide that resolution to my office so that we can move forward with the commissioners' redistricting. So can the county board tell the cities and townships how to change their precinct boundaries? Multiple choice, I should have brought prizes for this, but, so no, you guys cannot tell the city council and the town boards how to set out their boundaries. And if the cities or towns plan to change their precincts, the county administrator should stay informed with their plans and possible impact on our commissioner districts. So Monty has been through redistricting before, so I'm going to utilize some of his knowledge on this as well as we move forward. County commissioner redistricting may be required if the precinct boundary that was a commissioner district boundary is no longer there. Annexations have created non-contiguous districts. District population varies by more than that 10% average. We'll get into that a little farther in the slide presentation. And the majority of the districts can't have minority of population. So the county board can choose to redistrict also, even if you're not required to, okay? So the county's responsibilities. The county governments must redistrict commissioner districts after every census to meet the statutory requirements of the Minnesota Statute 204B 135. This redistricting can take on the forms of reestablishing the county commissioner districts if they currently meet all the requirements, or drawing a new county commissioner district to make them conform to the statutes. So statutory requirements, adjusting the election district boundaries following the federal census, creating the election districts that are equal in population as practical. We want those 5 districts to be as equal as we can get them. And create election districts of compact contiguous territory. That's a tricky word. Okay, so the commissioner district plan will include, in our plan, we need to include the district description, the district numbers, the election scheduled to ensure staggered terms. We'll need to stagger terms if any of you need, if we need to do some different changes in redistricting. And we don't necessarily have to continue the same pattern of terms. So that will be determined by the commissioners if and when we get to that point. Notifications that are required with redistricting, we need to make sure that we're publishing that plan in the local paper, posting it, notifying the Secretary of State office, the cities and the towns as well, once we have plans in place that we want to present. Voters may contest if, contest to it if they require the county to redistrict, or they require revision of a plan that the county has already come up with. So if they don't like the plans that we propose, they can contest it. That's not gonna happen, so. County Commissioner District requirements. So we have to have as many districts as we have commissioners, logical. Districts bounded by precinct lines, contiguous territory, regular and compact, the 10% rule, and the plan then would be filed in my office. So we're gonna highlight on a few of these. So contiguous territory. So a commissioner district, they're composed of a contiguous territory. So down below in the example there, the little boxes with the two gray points touching, this is a sample of a non-contiguous territory. So districts that are composed of a joint or area that join each other at a single point, which this is a single point, is not considered a contiguous territory. So that isn't gonna fly, so. So regular and compact. Commissioner districts are to be regular and compact in form as possible. Makes logical sense.
I'm way too compact.
Comments? The 10% rule, redistricting is required. So district populations cannot vary by more than 10% from the average for all districts in the county. Okay, so unless the result forces a voting precinct to be split. So as you know, we do have a precinct that is split, Minden Township 1 and 2. We're gonna talk a little bit more here about the 10% rule. So county population, to determine that 10% threshold, is divided by the number of commissioners times 10%, and that gives us our threshold amount. So these numbers are on here, what I've pulled off the geological site. These are our numbers for the census, the 2020 census. The current population in Benton County now is 41,379. That is up approximately 2,900, just over 2,900 from 10 years ago when I looked at the numbers. So we're gonna take that divided by 5 to get our average of 8276. We're gonna take our 8276 by the 10% to get our threshold number of 827 per district. So district number 1 has a population of 7,581 currently with our new census results. The average is 8276, so we have a variance of 695. Since the variance of 695 is less than the threshold of that average 827, no adjustment would be required. Okay, next screen. So this is kind of what I have currently for our districts based on the census numbers. So as you can see, this is all preliminary because this is all gonna change and can change when legislature and the cities and towns get done with their redistricting. So I'm giving you a snapshot, but you really need to keep in mind that this is pretty sure this is gonna change, but this is where it's at right now. So as of right now, everybody is being equally represented in the county, that each one of our 5 districts is within that threshold. Okay, next slide. Okay, so tests for proper districts. There's some tests to look at: population equality, compactness, contiguity, and equal protection. Those are things that we need to consider when we're looking at the districts. Which commissioners need to rerun? If the seats normally normal four-year term is up in 2022, which we have two that are, they will need to rerun. If the commissioner's district has had a greater change than the 5% rule, which I'm gonna cover, then they would need to rerun, okay? Keep in mind that there's a lot of puzzle pieces to this redistricting, and I don't have them all 100% down, so. So 5% rule, another layer. So we have the 10% and now the 5% rule. And please, if I state anything wrong, please, Commissioner Popper, Monty, interject and correct me, okay? So the 5% rule, the 2020 Benton County population we said was 41,379. We have the 5 commissioners. The average is 8276, which we already covered. The threshold with the 5% rule is 414. Okay. Give me just a second here. So the 5% rule is really based on the shift in population. When the boundary lines change, there's going to be a shift in population in that district. Some of the people in that district are moved out and some are moved in. So the 5% rule is really more about the shift of those boundary lines. So hypothetically, this example, and bear with me because the next screen will explain this a little more because this is a lot to really wrap your head around. So we're just talking hypothetically if District 1 had a pre-districting population of 8675 and then they had a redistricting population of 8901. The change between the two of those is 226, okay? Can I go back? I want to go back. There we go. Okay, so then let's say the new lines get drawn and now the population shift has occurred. 1,000 people to be out of that district. But then with the new boundary lines, we had 1,101 now in that district. So the shift in the lines created this many to be out, this many to be in. So we add those numbers together and we've had a total shift of 2101. Okay, and the threshold up above is 414. This'll explain this a little better. While the net change in the population between those two was only the 226, the new district line shifted 1,000 former voters out of the district and 1,101 voters into the district. The county commissioner will need to rerun again. It is not simply the net change of the size of the population of the district before and after redistricting, but the total number of individuals affected by the redistricting that needs to be considered. Don't ask me any questions about that.
I think it makes sense. I mean, it's saying, well, you know, you're representing a different group of folks than you did before.
Yep.
Who didn't elect you.
Right.
You got a new bunch of folks. So that makes sense you'd have to run again. Yeah.
Virtually, wouldn't it be that if you're representing 414 new folks with the boundaries drawn, you gotta be up for election?
Yeah.
That's virtually what it says.
Yep.
Yeah. Thank you for chiming in, Commissioner Pop and Monty on that. So, are we okay? So basically, a little bit of a summary. We're gonna summarize all this up. Plans will provide, our plans that we provide will summarize the following things. All of these things will be included in those plans that we propose. The observation in changes, the 10% rule, the redistrict numbers, the populations for those districts, the average population, the population deviation, the percentage of deviation from average, commissioners' to run. The 5% rule, if there's any additions or deletions, exceed the percentage of the threshold. The plan will also show maps of the changes proposed. So that's a whole lot of layers, puzzle pieces to the redistricting. And this is just a snapshot. We haven't touched at all on how, and I'm not going to, how this is going to impact us in the Auditor Treasurer's Office with all the additional things that we'll be doing with the voters and having to update and change the voter records. And now you have a new district and we got to send out a notification and we got to update them in the statewide voter system. So there's a lot of additional layers that I have not included here because it's overwhelming. So the election of the commissioners then, with any changes that come down and come forward after legislation gets done and the cities and towns get done, and we get to finally look at our options of how we're gonna lay out our districts. We have to consider 2 and 4 year terms. If it just happened to be that all the districts, all 5 were impacted by those boundary line changes, and you all needed to rerun at the same time, then we'll have to, you guys get to determine the terms and how to stagger them. So that's the next comment there, as the board decides on the staggering of the terms. And that might happen. I haven't been through this before, so I can't really say for sure. Monty, did you experience?
It happened in 2010. We had 4, the Commissioner McMahon at that time had to run because of the 5% rule, and he volunteered to run for a 2-year term, so that made it easy. Yeah.
So 4 out of the 5 had to.
Yes. Yep. Yep.
So dust off the campaign signs, you guys. So redistricting meeting then, after we've had, we have some plans in place that we want to present. We obviously need to publish those 3 weeks prior to a board meeting, where we present those redistricting plans that we're considering in the county. After the commissioner district plan has been selected, the board should document, obviously, the plan, provide maps for the plan, and then it will be approved by board resolution, and then a copy of that would be given to my office as well. And that's it. You're done. That's all I have. So.
Any questions?
Mr. Chair, so Nadine, do we have a say in how we can draw the lines too?
Not really.
No. So that's something that Monty would be more experienced in, and maybe he can interject.
City precinct lines?
Yeah.
Precinct lines?
Yeah.
No, the city's gonna draw their own precinct lines.
Right, of course.
Okay, so that'll determine how our lines will be shifted then, for
Yeah,
instance.
we have to follow the city precinct lines.
Yep.
Okay.
So, again, as I mentioned earlier, that tends to kind of limit some options we have. We kind of have to go with what they decide to do. So, but yeah, we can't obviously split a precinct.
Okay.
So we really need to wait and.
We'll stay in close touch with the cities and just see what they're thinking, so we're ready.
It's too bad we couldn't have a say in some of this.
Yeah, right.
No.
But obviously, ultimately, the commissioner lines are your
So-
decision.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, so I didn't, the city and township deadlines, to complete their, redistricting is, it looks like around March 29th is what I have on my,
It's gonna be a short crunch for us to
Yep.
get this done.
very short crunch. Yep, we have maybe a couple of months at most to get everything laid out and done. So after the cities and townships finalize their stuff on March 29th, then the county board has until March 30th through about April 26th to get their stuff finalized.
Mr. Chair.
So we have not even 30 days, so.
Yes.
So Nadine, what's the deadline for, if you're gonna have some elections, you could potentially have some primaries, so
Primary elections is in August, of
But when is
course.
the filing date?
The filing date,
May 15th?
opens May 17th and ends on May 30th or 31st, I
So
believe.
your stuff, obviously, that all needs to be done before then.
You're correct.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. Because our actual primary election this year is on August 9th. And we're gonna have names that need to be printed on ballots, the voter system needs to be updated. So yeah, it's a tight timeline.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anything else?
Oh, this will get interesting.
Yep. Thanks, Nadine, for the great presentation.
Yep, thank you.
Yeah, you're
Thanks.
welcome. Thank you.
At this time, we'll recess the county board meeting to conduct human services, and we'll turn it over to Commissioner Heinen.
At this time, we'll call the order of the Human Services Board. Bob, do you have anything to add to the agenda?
I do not.
Mr. Chair, I'll move to approve the agenda as presented.
I'll second.
Got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Passed. Consent agenda 1 and 2. Does anybody want any, one of those two pulled?
I'll move approval.
Sorry.
I'll move approval of consent agenda items 1 and 2.
Second.
We got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Or call the question? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Passed. Bob?
I'm gonna have mercy on you guys and say I have nothing for you.
Wow.
Unless you have any questions.
Really?
Really?
That is mercy.
Wow, that is. I have nothing for you, Bob. Anybody
I
else have
guess-
anything for Bob?
Thank you.
All right.
No,
right.
thank you, Bob.
Thanks, Bob.
At this time, we're adjourned, and I'll turn it over to the chair. Commissioner Pop.
We're a little bit behind, but not too bad. We'll reconvene the regular board meeting, and we'll begin with Chris Byrd from Public Works.
All right. We're doing pretty good on time. Don't worry, I'll change that. So, all right. The first item I have on the agenda is once again appeal to the county's highway access policy. We talked about this item again 2 weeks ago. This is Mr. Hanson and his entrance permit. At the last board meeting, the direction was given to him to go back and look at the potential wetland impacts if he was to move the proposed entrance another 80 feet north. And I got a sketch here. So I think the intent was to get an access to align with an access on the east side of the road. This is our County Road 78. And this was the proposed location. And so the whole goal is to see if they're still under the threshold of impact of 5,000 square feet. And so I don't see the applicant here, but he did submit some additional information. And it appears that if he did still move that entrance to where it aligns with the entrance to the east, he would still be below the threshold of 5,000 square feet. I see Roxanne has joined us. Is that fair to say that at that location, he's still under the threshold that will require him to replace or mitigate wetlands, correct?
Right, so it shows that it's under 5,000, but there was not the wetland delineation was not actually completed. They haven't gone that far. This is sort of a overview of that area, correct, Park? They haven't actually done the wetland delineation.
Correct.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I thought we asked for that.
I thought so.
I
too.
believe
Yeah.
that we did. Because we wanted to know the impact. If the impact was gonna be over 5,000, that requires them to replace, correct? Correct, Mark? Yep. So that was the whole point of asking for a wetland delineation, and I know it costs some money to do this, but, you know, we're venturing outside the boundary, or outside the county rules. I mean, I did see the Granite City environmental assessment. Reading through it, and I don't know as much as Mark does, but I got the impression that they said it was not gonna affect. But, you know, it isn't a delineation, it's their view, right?
More or
So,
less, yeah.
what, have you dealt with them before? I guess that would be my,
Yeah.
are they, I mean, they're a reputable company?
Yeah.
Okay,
They do good.
so they did, you know, that, so I don't know, what do you guys think? Comments?
Mr. Chair, Roxanne or Mark, do you have an opinion about I mean, they're showing, if I read this right, 3,420 square feet of impact. I mean, in your opinion, are we talking it's gonna be 4,998, or are we gonna stick around 3,500 square feet? I mean, I realize the delineation hasn't been done, but.
Just in my professional opinion, the idea with wetland exemptions is if there's another way, that's the way you should be going. You shouldn't get an exemption just because you want an exemption, just like variances. Just because you don't wanna build your structure in this particular location doesn't mean that you automatically get a variance to build it in a different location. And so if there is a way to install a driveway that, avoids any sort of impact, that is the preferred, route.
What would you define though as up to 5,000 square feet though? I mean, what's the purpose of that definition?
In events that there is no other access or
Okay.
way to get into a property.
I've said all along from my standpoint of view, I know the county highway department has said share the driveway to the north. And coming from the ag sector, and I know they do a fair amount of farming through that driveway, I am not in favor of forcing somebody to share a driveway with heavy equipment. If you'll see in the environment, they want to have a paved driveway going into that residence, and that's virtually impossible when you ask them to share a driveway because, one of the townships up there, even with the new poultry barns, has recommended now an 8-foot apron going into your poultry barn because it causes a lot of maintenance. It breaks up the tar. There's more road maintenance and all that. So I'm really not in favor of sharing a driveway with agricultural equipment if at all possible. I mean, there's point in time where maybe we're gonna have to, if it's a residential or something. So that part kind of was off the base for me. Is there other things that we could do for that? I don't know.
Mr. Chair,
Yes,
so with the proposed driveway where they want it, is it at only 400 feet instead of the 480 of what the county requires?
I was looking for another map. So, putting it, aligning it here puts it 480 feet from the entrance to the south.
okay.
Oh, it does? Okay.
Yeah, so there's the existing access to the north here that we don't see on this
Right.
particular map. I was looking for another map that might show that.
So-
Did I pass it already?
No, there's just a lot of pages there.
So he met the 480 feet then that was required?
From one direction, I believe, so.
Correct.
We wanna put it here, I don't know if we got a full 480 from this entrance, and so this is the existing entrance to the property that was referenced. And so if this is not granted, he would have to utilize this entrance around, which he has already recorded an easement. Currently he owns both parcels, but if for some reason in the future there's different owners, there is an access or a cross easement that allows this owner to access through here. That's already been recorded, correct?
Right, but he doesn't
That's a temporary one.
Yeah, that.
No,
and
it's
he-
not temporary.
It's an easement but he does not own both properties anymore. Cause it was recorded to Jeff's and the others is in a different name.
It's possible.
Yeah.
One was in the 400 LLC and one
Yeah.
now in his name.
Right. So.
But the
Still
point
same
is
owners.
that could change ownership though.
Right, it could change ownership in the future, anything's
But
possible.
That's why we require that the easement be perpetual and binding upon the sale of it, so. And that's what's currently in place.
I go back to, I thought we agreed that he'd come back with the wetland.
Delineation.
Yeah.
And I think maybe there was, now that he does meet the 480 feet, I think maybe there was the lack of communication there.
Well, my guess or assumption would be that, that was one of the things we asked to get him to 480 feet
Mhm.
and to stay under 5,000,
Yes.
which he's looking at.
Right.
Now, to Roxanne and Mark's point, you know, can you bypass any type of work being done in a wetland? That's kind of what this gets down to, you know, is the wetland.
Yeah.
I mean, this is not 100% sure they're gonna stay under the 5,000?
It's
Well-
really close.
So yeah, you would take the 1575 plus the 3420 would be the total impact. I know, now I'll speak from a roadway construction, because we have to do delineations when for a lot of times we go through a determination first to see if there's wetlands present. And then once we find out, oh yeah, there's wetlands present, then we have to go through a delineation where you have somebody actually walk out there and say, that's wetland, that's not, here's the line. And then what we have to do, we actually have to survey that in, so we have an accurate measurement of that area of impact. And correct me if I'm wrong, but that's the piece that we're missing now. Since the delineation was not done, we don't have an accurate measurement of the area of impact. So we're looking at approximates here. And I think if you look at the wetland, the intent of the Wetland Conservation Act is that to protect wetlands. We're bumping up against that threshold. Are we below it? We might be. Are we slightly above it? We could be.
Well,
So
Mr.
we'll
Chair, as
kind of flirt with
proposed,
that
you're at
line.
4,995 square feet. You're
Okay.
within 5 square feet without a delineation.
Yeah.
Again, like Chris says, are we below or are we above it?
Right, it's really close, and it's, we've reviewed it a number of times, there are concerns that he's bumping right up against the de minimis exemption. Anything above that by 1 square foot would require replacement. The issue, there was a couple things we're not sure of was the right of way for the county road when they redid it, was that mitigated for? In other words, did the state replace for that impact? I'm not sure, and they haven't provided any documentation as such, so that could be added on to what they're proposing. But the issue to me is, so he's partially constructed the driveway that he wants.
Yep.
So he's got that in there. In the discussion I had with Granite City, his consultant, their driveway, if they come in at 480, which meets your requirements, distancing requirements, would have to be narrower. It'd have to be a 10-foot top, 2-to-1 side slopes. 2-to-1 is steep. If you drive off a 2-to-1, you're gonna be sitting on the side of your shoulder because your car's gonna tip over. But then it comes into the road that he's already constructed, and that seems to be 12-foot top, 3-to-1 side slope, so it's much wider. So he's gonna come in, build something at the right of way that's gonna be really wide, narrow it up really a lot, and then match it to what he's built.
Are we responsible for like the safety part of that, or is that
Well,
basically up to them?
No, but the other issue is because he's really close is if he continues, what we do have to look at is erosion control and best management practices. He's got none. He's got the driveways in there. There's not a stitch of silt fence. There's no erosion control. The point of that is if he's at 2 square feet from being over, if he doesn't do something to control erosion and runoff from the driveway and he roughs it in, it's gonna exceed it, in my opinion.
Mr. Chair, Mark, or Roxanne, are you aware that if there is a delineation done, does he have available square foot to replace?
Well, that's where that's where it gets confusing, because the TEP has already reviewed that. Because he has alternatives to access that without filling wetlands, a replacement plan would be denied.
Oh,
Oh, we can,
That's where the struggle comes in, because the rule is pretty clear. If he's got feasible alternatives, feasible and prudent being high ground road, we have to deny the application.
even if it's not available to him on that parcel?
But that's the issue, it is. He's got an easement on it. He's
already
He's got
Ooh,
three,
he
he's got
created
two other
it.
options in that he could actually build the road at the old setback, which would be 330 feet. Maybe the highway doesn't want that at this point, but that would miss the wetlands to the south. He could put it in utilizing the existing road to the north, which he's using now to build the house, miss the wetland. So he's got two options there to miss it.
Excuse me, Mark, Mr. Chair, just so I don't forget this thought. So you're saying if there was approval for 330 feet from the property to the south onto his property, he'd miss all the wetlands?
Yep.
So at that point, he'd be appealing to get a 330-foot driveway versus a 480?
Yep.
What were the old rules, Chris? Were the old rules 330?
Depending on the classification of the road, some roadways with lower volumes and lower functional classification require 330 feet. This roadway requires 480 feet, mostly due to the volume. Just to put that in perspective, 330 feet brings it closer, probably in line to where this is here, closer to the south property line.
Has he pursued that request or has?
Yeah, he has.
He did.
But we have a lot of issues with the property owner to the
That was,
south.
I think that was the first request. The
Yeah.
first appeal he had was to come and put it in at 330 feet.
You know, and then we went to the 480 in order to keep it in line with what we do in the rest of the county, and
then it lines up with an entrance on the
And the
east side
entrance
and
on the
stuff,
east
and
side
so
was-
we're being consistent with things in the area.
Mr. Chair, what is our county liability if we would grant that 480-foot driveway across from the other driveway and then find out it goes over the wetland
or won't,
allotment?
or won't they even delineate that?
They won't.
Are we putting ourselves on the line?
Not really. It's the applicant's responsibility. It's, the issue is again, at 5,001 square feet, which is, he would be looking at replacement. So then he'd have to do a delineation, he'd have to provide a replacement plan, he'd have to provide all that documentation. The TEP has sort of discussed that option without really an application, basically saying the rule is very clear in that if you can avoid wetlands, and that's.
I thought it was already denied that he would be able to do that because there is another access.
Right, and that's what I'm saying. He would be denied a replacement plan application. I mean, we haven't officially done that, but that was the discussion, and I don't
So-
think they changed.
Go ahead.
Mr. Chair, just to go on Commissioner Kapinski's question, though, is if this was approved today as is, he wouldn't have to do a delineation, and he would just move forward with his plans.
Right, if he's, based on the application he submitted, yes.
So there's nothing that would trigger the delineation if the board approved the access.
Well, other than you want to make sure that he doesn't exceed the de minimis.
Yep.
And you could potentially do that. Because right now you're kind of guessing. It's probably close, you know, like I said. The other issue is, and this is just viewing the site, and he's got the access to the north. He's punched in the driveway about 3/4 of the way through the woods on the south, so he's already probably got the neighbor to the south not happy, because the driveway's 3/4 built.
Doesn't matter.
What he's
It's
going
on
to
it, yeah, it's on
probably do, and what you're gonna end up with, is a loop, about a half a mile loop driveway that's gonna have 2 access points onto 78. Because he's not gonna quit using the one on the north.
Well, you mean you don't think
That's
he's,
the purpose of the easement, is.
the one on the north, they're not gonna use for their residents, I tend,
I would be shocked if he doesn't. to be honest.
that road is not real good accessing in there. I
Yeah,
mean,
but
you would not
can-
wanna drive your vehicle through that road on a daily basis without doing some major
Right, but
maintenance.
he's a paving contractor,
Right,
so.
he's not gonna, they paved the one to the north for the other house. And I'm still not, I don't like the shared driveway with heavy farm equipment. So who's responsible for, who's gonna be responsible on the wetland stuff?
The applicant.
Mr. Chair, one thing we did ask and required was to have him do that, and it
Delineation.
wasn't done.
Okay.
My opinion, I am not ready to move forward with any of this until that is done, so we know exactly how many square feet we have to deal with.
I would
Because that was
concur.
given, he was put on notice that we wanted that.
Mr. Chair?
Yes,
Yes, we had discussed that he would go as far north as he could without impacting that 5,000.
right.
So, and he could go further up, so we're expect him to go as far as he can without affecting it.
Well, I think the expectation was that he tried to match up with the driveway to the
On the
east,
other
side.
which he's done.
Yep.
He, I guess I would agree, except I'm not 100% sure that we absolutely directed it.
I do know we asked for it.
And, Mr. Chair?
Yes.
And that other road, it sounded like that was a temporary access to be able to start
No.
working on the construction and everything.
No,
So
it's-
So we had a
Recorded
way
now.
out from his property.
I think whether the intention was to be temporary or not, the fact that it's recorded as
Right.
perpetual on the two parcels makes it a permanent
Mhm.
access, unless there's some kind of other action to override that previously recorded action. It might have been the intention to be temporary, but
It might have been his intention.
His
but-
intent.
Right, but it's,
Wait,
And
as
he
it's
could,
recorded,
he
it's
could
permanent.
vacate that, right, after the easement can be vacated, right?
Possibly.
I'm not sure about that.
Yeah, I don't know neither.
I don't know the exact.
Okay, so
Action
I
that
guess
would be needed.
at this point, what's your wishes?
I've already expressed my opinion.
Okay,
I concur with Commissioner Heinen.
that we, tell them to do wetland delineation,
I want to see exactly where we're at.
okay? You agree?
I agree.
Okay. So that's,
Well, if I may, Mr. Chair, I was just going to recap. So this is kind of the process, maybe. We at a staff level has denied the permit. So there would technically be need a board action to maybe override that. I guess if the board takes no action, it would default to the staff denial at this point. So I just wanted to make that clear as you commissioners are thinking about making motions and seconds and stuff.
Well, I don't-
That's what I think
yeah.
where we're at, is to override
Consensus.
and accept the appeal.
right now, the consensus says to have a wetland delineation done on that.
A question for Chris.
We
So
want to work on the access.
is the location to the north acceptable to highway?
Yes.
In other
Oh,
words,
you
the-
mean the existing entrance that's already constructed?
No.
No, this one.
The new one that
Proposed.
would require the wetland delineation, is that location acceptable to highway?
So we denied it on the premise that it's an additional access to the parcel. So this is to make this
Okay.
confusing. When this process started, there was one parcel. And so he was requesting an additional access to a parcel, and we denied that. In the process, after we denied it, he completed a land split and recorded the easement. We still said, well, the parcel has existing access. We're still upholding the staff recommendation of denying the permit. And then it came to the board as part of the first appeal. And that's when it became discussed that the potential for wetland impacts existed. So I think from the county highway standpoint, I kind of believe that we got two violations, I shouldn't say violations, so two considerations to make. Are we in compliance with the policy of multiple accesses onto one parcel? And are we potentially violating wetland protection? Those are the two considerations. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but the board was willing to adjust the entrance policy if we knew we were not going to be in violation of any wetland protections.
Yes.
That's what I recall. And that's where the discussion of 330 versus 480 came in. And I think the board gave direction, if we can find at 480, we know we're going to be under the threshold. It seemed like the board was willing to approve an entrance at that location. So I think we're back to determination versus delineation. Are we certain that we're going to be below that 5,000?
Mr. Chair. Chris, in the future, how is this gonna open up some different areas throughout the county with people doing the same thing and having the same problem?
It is becoming a growing concern for us. We are seeing more and more of this kind of thing. Splits are continuing to happen. And we're seeing more and more of an old farmstead being split off from the agricultural land. Where before, for who knows how many years, that entrance was shared with the farm traffic and the residents. Now, the one farming it no longer lives there. So,
Chair, and based off of your comment, Steve, Chris, is this something that can be solved more easily or readily through an ordinance process instead of a policy?
The ordinance would maybe govern how we address when you can't meet the recommendations for. In an ordinance, we won't be able to address every potential parcel and location where entrances will be placed. So
But
we
correct
still
me-
have to have a policy.
Correct me if I'm wrong though, Roxanne, if it's through the ordinance, wouldn't it allow then for a possible variance request? And it could go through that process instead of an appeal coming to the county board every time somebody's got a driveway issue?
It's kinda gonna come through you guys no matter what,
Okay.
whether a policy's in place or it's an appeal process. I think you probably have more flexibility with a policy than you do an ordinance. Just something to think about.
Mr. Chair, I brought up that question because I know of two people that want to throw an application in.
It's
For
there's gonna be more
secondary
and more of it,
driveways.
and even Chris attests to it.
Right,
And if I can really quickly, I know
Think we know
Mark
the-
Lloyd asked me just
that's three then.
last week how many land splits we've seen this year. To date, roughly 65 or 66 of those, half were on county roads. So I honestly, I don't know that my office prior to me was very good at running these through the highway department for proper access. And so that's why you didn't hear about maybe as many many issues, because it was an after the fact that they would come to highway and ask for access rather than as part of the split and approval process.
Well, and as you well know, Commissioner Pop, there's at least one or more coming that are gonna be affecting ag land also that has an
Right.
entrance that's existing. And so
Yeah.
we're gonna have to come up with some.
We're gonna have to come up with something, and there's, somehow we have to have somebody that's gonna go out and look at these and see, I don't know if the other one's coming forward or not, but, there's some things that I just won't move for, and there's some things that you look at, and it's like, come on, people, you gotta have some respect on what they're trying to do out there. They're gonna build, I don't know what this house is gonna cost, they're gonna build, several $100,000 house, and we're trying to grow our tax base. And if we continually be a tough county to do stuff like this, and we know the rural areas that are out there that people wanna move into the rural, it makes tough. Maybe our housing we'll define that or something, but I know I won't farm anything if I had to share with some residential driveway, because all you get is grief, and so we have to end that somehow.
If I could just quickly ask, and this is sort of a question for Chris, but how do you go about changing the policy or reviewing the policy? Because I know when we receive a lot of variance requests for, say, garage size, we look at our ordinance and say, does it make sense?
Okay,
And we change that policy after research, of course.
right.
And so I don't know what that process is. Not to put you on the spot, sorry, Chris.
Policy, it's up to the board to ultimately adopt it. So if it's something we want to revisit, we certainly can. And I'll come back with, recommendations as the county highway engineer.
Okay, yes,
The policy does say that each property owner can have an access to the road. So, and if they don't own that property up there anymore, and they have their parcel, they should be able to have an access.
It doesn't guarantee direct access. So to be the devil's advocate, we could argue that by granting themselves an easement before they split it off, they gave themselves an access. And there's, plenty of locations where there's shared accesses.
Right.
I think that's ideal if on the property line and within the road right of way, that's the shared portion. And by the time you get to that edge of right of way, the driveways can peel off and split from each other. So technically, nobody's driving on anybody else's driveway. They're driving on the road approach, which is our ultimate maintenance responsibility over time.
Mr. Chair?
Yeah.
Going to Commissioner Schlangen's point, they would have been better off not applying for that easement and splitting it off on the front side, then that would have held water.
Well, I think
were
they are
notified of
also
that. I told
looking,
them if they record that
They're
easement, there
it was a
wouldn't have missed the.
temporary easement.
No,
No, it's not a temporary.
I don't think there's a temporary easement.
No,
No,
That
it's
was-
not temporary.
it's not.
And they were notified of that, right?
Yes.
I guess, Mr. Chair, I guess I'm all for just what you were saying. But here's the drawback, the wetlands.
Right.
Okay, that's the main issue.
And it'll be, and
it'll be,
I'll
right.
abide to the wetland part. So I think your wishes are to have a wetland delineation.
Well, we get clear clarification.
Okay.
Yeah, I know it's gonna cost some money, but if we can't come to a decision, maybe that'll help make a decision. I mean, Mark, you said the TEP board was gonna deny it either way?
Well, in the last meeting, the TEP technically cannot deny an exemption. So if they qualify for the exemption, we would have to issue it.
Okay.
But there's caveats to the exemption and erosion control, and the issue with this is, as at 480, what they're proposing looks like it's like 2 square feet under, but they're doing things to make the driveway less desirable, the longer term maintenance. If you put in a 2-to-1 side slope and a 10-foot top, in a year that's gonna push out probably more than 2 square feet. So now, because, the issue is because the TEP wouldn't recommend approval of a replacement plan. So now if he goes over the de minimis, the question becomes, do we require the whole driveway to go? Do we require 2 square feet to go? Do we require, if you were going to deny the replacement plan, the TEP's leaning towards that the wetland impacts would have to be totally removed. Now he's got no driveway. Just
What,
to make you aware of that.
yeah, then, I'm just thinking maybe 5 years down the road.
Yep.
What happens if he makes this really skinny driveway and all of a sudden he splits off 10 more houses to where now more people are using that road and it becomes almost like a safety deal and.
Right, and that, I mean, you can't speculate that, but that's, the bigger concern to the TEP was, and just looking at the site plan, is that they're so close, one way or another, that you can draw anything you want on a plan sheet. I can draw convex slopes in a plan sheet, but can you actually build it?
Yeah.
So in the actual process of building something, if he exceeds the de minimis, he wouldn't qualify for replacement, we would require it to be removed, could require it to be removed. And that's where the TEP was going.
Well, that's
The other thing to remember is, when you're looking at replacement, when you're looking at wetland impacts, the replacements are very costly. So you're requiring them at that point, if they can avoid, financially, they're better off, number one. Number two, if they're going to go down the road of replacement, they have to replace it, starts at 2.5 to 1. So if you fill an acre, you have to create or restore 2.5 acres. It comes down to 2 to 1 via what the state has, wetland banking credits. Banking credits right now start at $2 a square foot. So that's $86,000, basically. And that doesn't include the replacement plan application, the delineation. So those costs aren't something to just, and that's, so if they were to be approved, they're gonna spend that much money before they put a stitch of dirt in the ground. So just be aware of that when you're thinking about it, kind of thing.
Mr. Chair, so in a sense, Mark, if we deny this permit, we're probably saving the landowner a lot of money in the future, from what I'm hearing from you.
You're saving him some money, I would say.
With that 10-foot driveway, when it deteriorates.
But that's not how he's gonna see it.
No.
Just let you know.
I understand that, but I'm
His
just,
driveway, it's his
I'm just looking at the
responsibility.
future
yeah.
though, because if that
Driveway is
10-foot driveway
responsibility.
deteriorates,
Nobody cares if my driveway deteriorates. I mean,
it's
Yeah.
your driveway in a wetland.
right?
No.
Yeah.
Hey, so it all falls back to the
Actually,
wetland.
my
So-
private driveway to my house is in a floodplain area. Has been for years, but it's been grandfathered in.
Oof.
I don't know.
I make the motion that we wait for the wetland
Delineation.
delineation.
Motion by Maine, do I hear a second?
I'll second it.
Okay.
But-
Motion been made, any other discussion? Call the question, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
No.
No. I can second a motion and say no.
Right.
3-2 still passed.
Still passes.
No, there was two.
Two.
It still
Johnson and
passed.
Heinen.
Okay, so I think, based on that, vote, the direction would be for me or Roxanne to, notify and I can do that, notify the applicant and instruct him to complete a wetland delineation. Is that correct? And
That's
then
what I
bring
think.
that back.
If he so chooses.
Yeah, and that gives.
That's true. If he chooses not, then I think the process just ends then.
Yeah.
Leave it up to him.
Yeah.
Mr. Chair, if I could,
Decisions.
I see our rep from Northlands here. I don't know if it's appropriate time maybe to slip her in here before Chris, because I know she's gonna be sitting here for an extended period of time if we don't do that. That's totally your choice. I'm throwing it out as an option. Mic is on.
Okay, is that okay with Chris?
Yes, you got me all morning.
Sorry, Chris, I know you'd be here for a while, so I just thought I'd throw it.
When you said.
No problem.
Want to jump ahead to Jessica? All right, that's great. So Jessica, we certainly provided our board with everything you sent us, so I guess, would you like them to follow along with this one?
Perfect.
I think it's the one that's right on top. It's right on top. It's kind of the big high-level summary of what occurred with the bond sale, so Jessica, it is all yours.
Mr. Chair, Commissioners.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. I'll be very quick so you can get on with your meeting. You do have the sale summary, as Monty pointed out, that reflects the results of the bond sale that we held for the county yesterday morning. Happy to say that the results came in really strong. We had 6 bids in total. So given some of the volatility that we've seen the last couple weeks, it was nice to see a strong showing for this issue. As the board is aware, the proceeds here would be used to refund the 2014A bonds for the county. These are considered general obligation tax abatement bonds, and they will be replaced with general obligation tax abatement bonds, although this series will be 2021A. The bonds have been structured to result in relatively level annual debt service savings over the life of the bonds. So the structure is exactly the same as the 14A. So we've not lengthened that or shortened the maturity. Just again, looking to capture interest savings here given the low interest rate environment. The security on the bonds will continue to be the general obligation pledge of the county, payable from those abatement levies. In terms of the method of sale, it was a competitive sale. Again, 6 bids received with the low bid coming from D.A. Davidson out of Denver, Colorado. We did have a rating assigned on the bonds of AA. I know that the county board has received the full rating report. I won't plan to go into that unless you certainly have questions. But generally speaking, a lot of positive comments in there about the very strong liquidity of the county and your financial position. So certainly something to be proud of. Of course, we want to extend our congratulations to the county for maintaining that very strong rating. You have a final maturity here, February 1st of 2030, and then at the bottom of the page, you'll see a table that really just compares the information that we went over in the finance plan. So we went from a par amount of $2,520,000 down to a par amount of $2,300,000. The reason for that is because we received some premium on the bonds. And what that means is that investors are looking for a higher interest rate on the bonds, and they'll give you cash up front to get there. So we're able to downsize the total principal. That being said, all-inclusive costs went from 1.36 up to 1.39. As I mentioned, there's been some volatility recently. That being said, we did see a smaller amount of savings here than what we had anticipated in the plan, but ever so slight. In that third box down, you'll see that we had estimated the savings to be $222,458. What we came out with was $219,506. So very, very similar. The market's off about 10 to 15 basis points. So seeing that change about 4 basis points, I think is actually a really strong showing for the bids that came in. Overall, your present value savings here is 7.72%. The bid summary is on the following page, so you can see those bids that were received. And I lied to you before, it's 7 bids, not 6. I'm sorry about that. The following page, on page 4, you will see the sources and uses of funds, and there's where you can see that reoffering premium. So that second line down, you're seeing that premium of $210,554 was used to reduce the overall par amount of the bonds. The pricing summary is on the following page, so you can see how that cash contribution works with the couponing on the bonds. So you'll see the stated rate or the coupon on the bonds is that third column in. The actual yield is where we want to pay attention. So that takes into effect that cash that was received. So you can see in that first maturity at 0.23 going out to 1.15 in that later maturity of 2030. The debt service comparison is on page 6. So you'll see there's a very slight amount of savings here in 2022. That's really just due to the rounding on the bonds. And then from there on out, you're averaging around $26,000 per year in total savings between the old debt service and the new, coming out to $219,506.14 in total. And then you've got the new debt service schedule, and the county will receive all of this information in the transcript that's sent over. But then finally, we've just got a couple of graphs for you. Just so you can see kind of how the interest rates have been behaving recently and on a long-term scale as well. With that, I will conclude my comments, but certainly happy to take any questions that the board may have.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
So I was not here with the first presentation. What's this costing the county for this?
Sure.
Where is that located?
I think it's 13.
So what we've got is the underwriter's discount is $13,772. So this
What
is
page are we on?
page 4 in the
Thank you.
sources and uses.
Got it.
And then total cost of issuance here is $44,490. And then you've got that rounding amount, as I mentioned, the $2,292.53. That's just due to the fact that bonds are sold in $5,000 denominations. That being said, the total savings of that $219,000 is net of the issuance costs.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions?
Excuse me, Mr. Chair, just to be clear, Jessica, so the 44,490 plus the 2292, those are the issuance costs, that would come off of the savings of 219. Yeah, net amount.
No,
Already
the
be off.
total savings to the county is the $219.
Okay,
Those issuance costs are paid out of the proceeds of closing.
okay,
So those figures that you stated, along with that $13,772 for the underwriter's discount, are also included in there.
okay.
So yep, those will be paid out of the proceeds. So not taking away from the $219.
We
Okay.
still get the full 219.
Yep, okay,
Correct.
thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions? Okay. This will require some action.
Yes, you'll see a motion approving the resolution awarding the sale of bonds.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to approve a resolution awarding the sale of Benton County Series 2021A General Obligation Tax Abatement Refunding Bonds as presented.
I'll second.
Motion been made and seconded. Anybody want any other discussion? Hearing none, you heard the motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thanks. Mr. Chair, we have a 2-minute recess.
Yep, we'll take a couple minutes here.
More coffee?
No, thanks.
way to Malacca. In town here is a reconstruction project that includes building a roundabout at 8th and Penn. Well, to do that, they need to get some temporary construction easements from us. And the first parcel we're going to look at is the parcel that we're sitting on right now. It has Highway 23 frontage. And so most of the work, if not all of the work, is going to continue or occur within existing right-of-way, which is kind of denoted by this green and blue line here. But MnDOT is going ahead and seeking a 10-foot temporary easement just to allow workers and equipment to get into that. So here's an image of that. I think the next page is actually an aerial image that we can kind of zoom in on too. They do note that excludes the sign. So they're not getting an easement for the sign. They're not going to touch the sign. And it looks like, oh yeah, there's some planting, some small trees out there. Those should be outside of that 10-foot easement. But basically here across this parcel, whole 10-foot is what they would like to get from us. And to do that, they're prepared to pay $1,900 as kind of a rental for using that easement over the next. There's an expiration date in that easement. I think it goes out to 5 years from now, or when construction work is completed, whichever occurs first. So that's something for you to consider. That's one agreement. There's actually should be 3 copies of that easement in your packet. I have it under the same item, but let's jump across the road. The other parcel the county owns. So obviously where the sheriff's office and courts facility is, they want to seek another 10-foot easement generally, but this has got some additional nuances to it that we should take a look at here. Along the frontage of the road is some access control, and that's denoted by this green line with the circles, meaning MnDOT controls the access where they're not going to allow any accesses to their highway except where there's a break in it. And so there's a modification to this access control, break in access. So when you look at that easement, it's worded a little bit different. And so this is the difference. They're actually widening the break in access. So this is on the west side of the sheriff's facility where they get to their Sally Port and then share that access with the clinic here. This green line shows that the break in access kind of goes right to the edge of the pavement. That's what this gray line is here. Meaning if we wanted to widen it ourselves or something, we would be in violation of their access control. So actually what they're proposing is to adjust that and make that opening a little bit wider than what it is now, but remain access control through the remainder of the parcel. Yeah, that is just an aerial view of that same location. So once again, it just shows that they had access control kind of in this area. I guess I shouldn't say they're widening it. They're actually centering that more over the existing access there. So meaning in the future, to access this part of the parcel, we'll only be able to allow to access it at this location. On the east side, I do want to point out there.
Yeah.
Oh.
So they're gonna take away the access to the actual court facilities and.
No, the access. So here's the break in access control, which would be this red line here.
Yeah.
So right now it's the green line. They're extending it to this point. So it'll be access control to here, and then from what I understand, instead of the access control starting at this point, it's going to start here. So it actually gives a little bit more width on this side.
But if you go towards the court facility's entrance, does that line break?
Towards the east?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, this next image should show that. So here's the main access in that, and I'll bring it up on the aerial. Yes, that's a good point to make. So once again, the green line is the access control with a break that is centered over that. Is there another image? Oh, there is actually one other access to this parcel that I wanted to make sure was preserved too, because it seemed like we did not want to vacate it. Yeah, right here. And so when we zoom in on that, it's kind of hard to see because it's zoomed in, but this access control is this line right here. So this is just a grass entrance, and I think property management use it primarily to mow over here, and this would be on the east side of the Veterans Memorial. But it does look like this break in access control is being preserved as per this easement.
We asked to keep it in the event that, let's just say, for example, the county were to acquire the adjacent parcel, and you need maybe a circular drive through, what have you, that option would remain.
Okay.
Yeah. So, but other than that, it's a temporary, 10-foot temporary construction easement across the whole frontage. The trees are exempt. I verified that the trees will remain, because I said that was gonna be a concern if we were going to lose trees. So they're supposed to instruct their contractors and put that in the plan that, do not touch the trees. If trees do get damaged or something, then we'll, we'll handle that appropriately at that time then. So this, in consideration for this, they want to offer $7,500 for that easement. So once again, this is a separate easement that you would need to authorize the board chair to sign, if that's acceptable.
They're both separate?
Yeah, I combined it under one agenda item,
Yep,
but
that's fine.
two separate agreements.
Okay. I think we've heard the discussion and seen the graphs, so.
I'll make a motion to authorize the board chair to sign the temporary easement documents.
Second.
Motion been made and seconded to sign the temporary easement options for the state. Any other discussion? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
All right, very good. Once those are signed, then I will get those back to the state and then inquire about how we get the money for it.
One question. And I'm sorry about this, Mr. Chair, it's a little late. So when we get this easement money, where does that go, Monty?
I hadn't thought about that. General revenue fund, I suppose. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. So it's not going to Chris?
Reverse the county engineer's time. We can talk about it at a future date. Yeah. All right. Just moving along in the agenda, the next item is to consider a resolution and authorizing signatures on the grant agreement for the replacement of the bridge on County Road 67. So very similar to agreements that we executed earlier on two previous bridges. We'll start with project 005598027, which is on County Road 67. That grant amount would be $265,253. Well, I'll pull it up here, which requires us to come up with $30,985 to fully fund that project. So has a completion date of 2023. Once again, that's just to give us time to get us our final paperwork done and final payment for the grant and everything. So we fully anticipate that the construction work will be done next calendar year in 2022.
Mr. Chair, if I may, if I could interrupt you quickly,
Yeah.
Chris. And this relates to a question of both bridge projects. In the use of funds, in regards to the match of $30,985, that's listed under removal of the existing bridges. So my question is who's removing the bridges?
It was part of the contractor.
Okay.
That's part of the construction. For some strange reason, that's not eligible for the state bridge grant funds. It's always a local cost to remove the structure.
Okay, so with that, does that mean that your crew can't do it?
We could. The problem gets into regulated waste. The old timber structures are with the creosote and asbestos in there. They're regulated waste. To be able to do that, you have to be a certified handler of that. So we always put that on the contract and make sure that the contractors are certified to handle that and dispose of that.
I mean, the reason I asked, between the two bridges, we're at $88,000 in removal.
Sure.
That's a lot of money.
Yeah, I don't disagree. So, yeah, it's one of those things, we're not certified, we'd have to go through an MPCA process to be certified and pay, there's fees associated with disposing those at landfills. So, well, we paid for it as part of the design, to have those inspected and tested to know what the regulated wastes are.
Both bridges have the timber?
Yes, both of them are timber. The one on 51 and 67 are both timber, creosote treated, timber beams and everything, so.
All right, thank you.
That being said, that's $30,000 of local cost for that project. There is a resolution that's required as part of this agreement. And so I'm just seeking approval of that resolution and authorization of the board chair to sign the grant agreement.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to adopt the attached resolution, authorize county board chair signature on MnDOT agreement number 1047927.
Second.
Motion been made and seconded to adopt an agreement for Bridge 1047927. Is there any other discussion that goes with this? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
All right. The next item would be the kind of similar same thing. This grant amount is $289,673 with a local match of $57,000. As you were voting on that, I was just thinking it may be beneficial of me to bring in some pictures of when they're actually demolishing this work. I was just thinking of some other things. Equipment, it would be another concern if it was something that you wanted our forces to do. We don't probably have the equipment necessary to reach and grab it and those kind of things. That would require us to rent pieces of equipment to do that. I do recommend it's better to have it just part of that contract and have contractors that are skilled and experienced in doing this kind of work. Our contractor, Landwear Construction, is very, very experienced in this type of work. So you're right, it is over $80,000 of local costs, but I would just like to point out that most of the costs are being covered by the grant amount. So I would be seeking approval of the resolution and authorization of board chair to sign this agreement for this grant for this bridge.
Mr. Chair, I'll move to approve MnDOT agreement number 1047897, local bridge replacement program grant for County Road 51.
Second.
Motion been made and seconded to approve the MnDOT agreement with 1047897 for bridge on County Road 51. Any other discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Carried.
All right. And I apologize for missing the beginning of the meeting, but did we get an added agenda item?
Yes, we did.
All right.
Yes, it's there.
Good. Well, let's talk about that. So, what is before you is actual a lease agreement, as was discussed in the negotiations and the purchase of the ice and shank gravel pit, was that the sellers would like to remain in the residence for a time after we purchase it. We are prepared for a closing tomorrow at 10 o'clock. So according to the attorney, this is more appropriate to have this signed now. It wasn't necessarily appropriate to sign a lease agreement when we didn't technically own the property that we would be leasing in return. I know it was kind of a quick turnaround there. I don't know if anybody has any questions to the agreement itself, but long and short of it is that we would allow them to remain on the property once we own it. Once they are no longer able to or choose not to live in that house, we have no interest in letting anybody else lease in it, and then we'd be interested in seeing what we need to do to dispose of the house structure at that time.
Mr. Chair, Chris, I'm assuming the Eisenschenks seen this and are good with this?
Yeah, they utilized an attorney
Signed it.
from
They
here in
signed
town to review that, and they were agreeable to that. And we should have their signatures on it already.
Okay.
So.
Guess I had to keep looking further.
So, kind of just as a formality, the closing, like I said, is tomorrow. If you authorize the board chair to sign it, we'd be interested in having the board chair actually sign it tomorrow on the day that it becomes our property. if that's any concerns with the board.
I've already had the conversation with Chris.
Mr. Chair, with that, I'll
Go ahead.
move approval of the lease agreement and authorize the board chair to sign on this property.
On the 6th.
Tomorrow, the 6th, yes.
Correct, yes.
I'll second.
Motion been made and seconded to approve the board chair to sign the lease agreement sometime tomorrow at 10 o'clock.
What was that?
Sometime tomorrow at 10 o'clock. Is there any other discussion?
Thanks for your work on this, Chris.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
All in
Yeah,
favor?
you're welcome.
Aye.
I,
Opposed? Carried. Yeah, thanks, Chris, for putting that together.
All right. And that's all I have, unless there's questions, but I know I've been up here for a while.
Thank you again for allowing her to, she didn't have
Yeah.
to sit through all of this stuff. Appreciate that.
Yeah, no worries, so, yeah.
were you applying for that hazardous waste permit too for next year so we can do the bridges ourselves?
No, I hadn't done that yet, so.
But I think that's way more than what we should.
Oh, I'm just kidding.
I do like of what you said about taking pictures of
Yep.
land where demolishing the bridges, so we got a better idea of what it takes for equipment and.
I'll do that.
You gonna be around for a little bit, or you head
I can
out?
stick around, yeah.
Okay, I got a question for you afterwards. Monty,
Alrighty, well, a little setup here. I've just made Amy from Marsh and McLennan Agency the presenter. So Amy she can click on that button and she can take over our screen. The first one is the new benefit, but a question for Jackie. Jackie, I see you online. Were you going to introduce this item for us, or are we going to go straight to Amy? Jackie, you're muted. I'll tell you what, we'll go straight to Amy.
Oh, she's right here.
In person.
That's
Jackie
better.
is chair of the Benefits Advisory Committee. So Jackie, did you want to introduce the item on the new benefit we want to propose? Okay.
Wow.
So as Monty mentioned, I serve as the chair as the Benefits Advisory Committee, and Marsh McLennan presented to us a new benefit that we would like to recommend to the board, but I will actually let Amy introduce that benefit to you as she knows it best. So, Amy?
Thanks, Jackie.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jackie. Thank you, members of the board. And thank you for your flexibility allowing me to present virtually to you to accommodate some scheduling conflicts we were experiencing. Just for clarification, Jackie had introduced the new benefit. Do you also want me to go over the medical renewal or just the benefit? The new one?
Amy, why don't we take the new benefit first, and then we'll ask our board to take action on it. And then if you could then go second into the premium, the health insurance renewal.
Okay. That sounds good. Excuse me, I'll fast forward here through this new benefit that we're looking at. My colleague Tim has been working with your committee for several years now, and particularly this new benefit. And where it's really coming from is looking at what employers are doing to help control costs. And certainly one of the biggest things that was even highlighted further by COVID was virtual care solutions. And we're seeing these available in a number of different ways, whether it's just traditional medical care as well as mental health. And I would say that the mental health component has been even more strongly utilized this last year, as we have seen demand increase and the availability of providers decrease, particularly for traditional face-to-face measures. What we're looking at here is a provider called First Stop Health. There are lots of ways of currently accessing virtual health, but they're not as well connected as this particular solution is. The other piece that is very unique about this solution is they are guaranteeing a return of savings of 125% of all your fees. So if they don't return that in savings on the medical claim side, they will basically give an offset on the fees that the county is paying. And those fees would be coming from the health insurance reserve. They're not additional funds being asked for. The other thing that this particular company does really well is they have customized communication, and they take care of all that communication. which increases their utilization. As you can see on this slide too, their average is 44%, which is considerably higher than the methods that are currently being utilized. And so what we're looking at here's just kind of how they're looking at some of the different savings that they would have. They're anticipating the cost of Benton County would be a little over $22,000, but the ROI should be $29,000 at the minimum. And if they don't exceed that, again, they would be returning those fees to Benton County. And this is just a little bit on how they calculate the ROI. Basically, at the end of a service call, they would ask the employee or the participants, the health plan participants, how they would have taken care of this had they not made the phone call. And based on whether it would have been a traditional doctor's visit, urgent care, or some other method, that is how they calculate the ROI. This is what they're, as far as when they're looking at industry results, when they look back at a survey done in 2019 on public administration, you can see they had very significant uptick in utilization, and we also can see what the average cost or savings was at $235 per visit or consult. These are some of the different components that are included within the First Stop Health compared to what is traditionally or currently offered within the plan. A lot of it really is just the communication and the customized engagement that really keeps employees involved. Oftentimes we talk about new programs or opportunities at open enrollment. And that's not necessarily the time when an employee or their family member may need the service. It really needs to be an ongoing communication. And that is one of the things that First Stop Health does very, very well, is to keep that communication going directly to your employees and the participants of the plan to remind them of this availability. This is also something that is at no cost to the employee, so that breaks down another barrier to care that continues to increase that utilization. So that is an overview of one of the programs, or the program we are recommending the committee or the county adopt for this year. So I'll pause and see if there's any questions or further comments from anybody else.
Questions? No questions, the way it looks at, like.
Good, then I'm doing better than the Highway Commission was doing on all their questions. You can't usually say that about insurance.
I know a lot of people are going to these.
Yeah.
This is pretty common.
Okay, I make a motion to approval to add First Stop Health as a benefit to the county's health insurance plan.
I'll second.
Motion been made and seconded to have First Stop Health added to the county's benefit program. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Right, then we will do a quick overview. I know some of you are new to self-insurance, so I'll also try to pause to see if there's any questions. Just to look at where we're sitting for the renewal of the self-funded health plan for 2022 for the recommended increase in funding. What you're looking in here is one of the ways that we like to look at costs is the cost per member per month. And that's what's represented in this bar column. And you can see the variation that it does throughout the month. Typically, healthcare is not a predictable cost, and so it will fluctuate. The first several months of a new year tend to be lower because the deductibles and out-of-pockets are being satisfied, so that means the members pay more and the plan pays less. As that continues throughout the year, the plan picks up more cost. As of right now, we're averaging about $389 per claim cost per member per month. This is just a little historical view, as if we were to look at it from the last several years. You can see for 2021 and a claim cost per month, we are actually running at one of our higher numbers, and that's why we're going to be looking for a higher increase to the funding.
Another way of looking at this is there's just more people utilizing healthcare than we've had in the past, and they might be more costly. This is not a relatively new phenomenon for 2021. We saw 2020 was more depressed, which, is certainly the COVID effect of people just weren't going in for care unless they absolutely had to. And if you look at the stop loss claims column here, you can see we are doing significantly better than last year in stop loss claims. Stop loss claims are going to be those high dollar claims above $70,000 that we buy a separate insurance policy to cover so that any one individual having high claims does not put on a significant burden to the self-funded plan. So we've seen the number of high cost claims have decreased, but the overall utilization has increased. Here what we're looking at, this is something that we share with the committee throughout the year. It's taking a look at what MMA is thinking for underwriting as we begin to move for the year, and this is actually comparing it to our renewal that received from Preferred One. This is looking at all the fixed costs, the costs that are not attached to the active claims within the county. We were anticipating a much higher increase in stop loss. And a lot of that was due to the high claims that we were seeing in 2020. Fortunately, those individual high cost claims, that trend slowed down, and so we were able to get a better renewal from Preferred One. We were looking at almost 40%, Preferred One actually came in at right around 25%. The aggregate premium, which is the big umbrella that protects the plan, that cost has not increased in the last 6 years, remains at $10,000. All these other fixed costs that are the other components of your healthcare plan, those are also not changing. So the only fixed cost change is the stop loss protection. Now, if we look at the other component, we have our fixed costs and then we have the claims. The claims are the unpredictable part. We can never anticipate or predict with 100% accuracy what type of claims are going to be incurred by the members of the plan during the year. And this again is looking at our underwriting versus Preferred One. We were anticipating about a 5% increase in the actual claims. Preferred One came in at about an 11%. And so we look down, so was that a question?
Nope.
Okay. We look down here in these yellow boxes. This is really the discussion that we have with your committee as far as where our recommendation is on funding. We were thinking right around 10%. The renewal came in at 12% to fund to expected. If we funded all the way to maximum, that would be up to where the aggregate policy takes impact. You can see currently the current funding is at $3,279,430, and we are recommending to increase that with the 12% funding. Go right here. Here's kind of just a summary of where we're looking at. And again, the big driver here is just the stop loss premium. It came in better than where we were anticipating. And our claims cost, it came in a little bit higher than what we were anticipating. And so the overall recommendation is a 12% increase to funding. Again, the advantage with being self-funded is if claims come in better, all we will be doing is adding to the reserve that Benton County keeps for the health insurance plans. Are there any questions in that very fast overview?
Mr. Chair, and just as a reminder, we did approve it, the 12% in our preliminary budget.
We did, yes. Yeah, we knew about that. Yep.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I'll make a recommendation to provide, provided by Marsh and McLennan Agency in regards to the funding employee health insurance plan.
Second.
Motion's been made and second for the health plan. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carried.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Amy.
Thank you, Amy.
Thank you, Jackie.
Yes. Hopefully it's better. Yeah, thanks, Jackie.
Thanks, Jackie.
Hopefully it's better news next year.
Yeah.
It's gonna be.
I don't
That
think
was
so either.
supposed to be 8 instead of 12
We
this year, but
struggled with 8
Mm-hmm.
last year.
first couple years we had.
I should just add on the health insurance is we'll bring to you the specific non-union employee health insurance contribution amounts sometime soon. For all of our union employees, our labor contracts tell us how that works. And basically, the way it works is employees and the county share in that increase 50-50. So I'm expecting the non-union table we'll bring to you will have that same arrangement, the 50-50 share of the increase. Yeah. So. I think the next one was considering membership in the Minnesota Rural Broadband Coalition. Your broadband committee has recommended that you join this group, and apparently they're a group that lobbies the state legislature for the border-to-border broadband funding to make sure that outstate Minnesota gets its fair share of broadband resources. Did a little checking. The cost of Benton County would be $2,000 annually. I did get a little feedback from the person at AMC that supports this group. It's Emily Murray, and she says they meet 4 to 5 times per year, most often during the legislative session, less frequently during the interim. They're holding most of their meetings via Zoom these days, and they host a day at the Capitol. So typically when we join something, there's the expectation we would have a representative who would participate. But she says we don't need to necessarily appoint a specific representative. She says anyone can attend. So I guess that sounds like it's your discretion. Do you want to join? And secondly, do you want to name a specific representative to represent Benton County at their meetings? So, okay. Commissioner Kapinski or Commissioner Johnson, want to add anything on that?
The only thing I'd add is Greg
Bristol
brought this up probably one of our first meetings,
Yep.
and at the time he kind of threw out the $500 figure, and so I actually got a call I called him yesterday. I said, Greg, you said $500, and Monty's got in our packet $2,000.
Yeah.
So he did some checking on that, and a year and a half ago it was
What's
500.
I see, inflation.
Monty, and with that, I see here you have both commissioner contingencies or ARPA money if this was approved. Do you have a recommendation specifically on that?
You know, I probably would go with commissioner contingency. I can't persuade myself in looking at the guidance that we could pay for a membership to a lobbying organization out of ARPA. That seems kind of iffy.
That's
to
why
me.
I brought it up. And so
Yeah.
And from my standpoint, we've done others, we got the Highway 23. We've got other things that we've done this on too. So I don't think this is out of the roll.
I believe if we join this, we're gonna regain that $2,000 pretty quickly on opportunities. So I would make a motion to join the Rural Broadband Coalition.
And Commissioner Kapinski, would you add on there to use the commissioner contingency funds?
I would add that too.
All right, and I'll second that motion.
Okay.
Okay, the motion's been made and seconded to join the Rural Broadband Coalition with using the Commissioner Contingency Fund. Any other discussion? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Did you wish to name a specific appointee to
That
this
was,
group?
I thought we were gonna do that on the next one when we appoint.
No,
This
little
is
bit
actually
separate.
different. So maybe
Okay.
on the rural band again. Emily is telling us you don't need to, but if you want to, that's fine.
Go ahead.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I would recommend,
I hear that.
I
I can
would-
see it coming.
Yeah.
the two already know.
Right.
I would recommend Commissioner Gopinski and Commissioner Johnson to be on this, being they started
Right.
out this process with us.
And when they have their, and it'll kind of line up if they have it down at the legislative forum or wherever they have these meetings, that one of them would be able to attend them meetings and then whenever else they have.
I think if it's okay with the rest of the board, Commissioner Kapinski and I can communicate on who's gonna attend or both
Absolutely.
or alternate or.
That's why I left it up to both of
Yeah.
you, because you started the process.
Yep.
Let's go through it and finish it.
Maybe that could be in the form of a motion in a second, and then we'll add
I'll
that to our committee appointment list.
I made the motion.
Thank you.
Okay,
Beth second.
Beth seconded it, so,
Didn't want to be there, Beth?
so all in favor of the motion to have Commissioner Kapinski and Johnson and let them work it out to the broadband coalition meetings or whatever. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
All right, thanks a lot. I'm sure Greg will be pleased. He's brought this up a few times.
Yes.
I'll let him know. Okay. Next is, we thought it was important to formally appoint the folks who agreed to serve on your broadband committee. And again, just maybe mention those folks: Amanda from BEP, Greg Brussel, Langola, Christine Sherburne. She's the St. George Township clerk. I think an enthusiastic supporter of broadband. Jim Martinson, you may remember Jim. He was here for the telecommuter forward issue. Sarah from the City of Foley and Mark Pappensfoos, the Public Works Director. And then Corey and Paul, Corey Zimpel, Paul, is that Schiefert?
Schiefert.
Both those individuals are the IT directors for both the Sauk Rapids schools in Foley, and were recommended to us by their respective school superintendents. You may have noticed a few asterisks, and these are the folks who we would call the so-called community members. And I think there was a consensus that folks that are community members would receive per diem and mileage. I think pretty much everyone else, they have full-time jobs, and you know, whoever they work for is going to pay them to be there and so on.
Yep.
So it wouldn't make sense for them probably to receive per diem, whereas the community members aren't similarly situated. So it'd just be those three that would get the per diem, and if they choose to, and mileage.
Commissioner and Johnson and Kapinski will be on there too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and this assumed that the county folks are already there. I didn't
Okay.
feel the need to.
Yeah.
Right.
I think you've already stated that our two board members are members.
All right.
I didn't feel the need to say that again. So these are essentially the non-county folks that are on the broadband committee.
And I know, I think, the township has been paying Bristol up to this time, and it's really, you know, they're working for the whole county, not just the township. I think that's a good deal.
And I think that certainly it's appropriate to use those ARP funds for that, the per diem and the mileage for those folks.
Yep.
It's in pursuit of broadband,
Yeah.
so I think
Correct.
it's fine.
Mr. Chair, I want to just elaborate on this committee here. As you look down it, this is a very solid committee that has been assembled here. When you're looking at IT directors from two major school districts included, you look at Christine Sherburne. She's been instrumental on a lot of things so far from a township level. Amanda, that goes without speaking, from the BEP, all the way down to what Sarah and Mark Pappensfoos have done from the City of Foley. Greg, Jim, I mean, this is a great committee moving forward, and I think we're set to have a lot of success moving forward.
I agree.
And as you know, Bristol is retired from the St.
Yep.
Cloud School District as the IT. So you got some pretty
Yep.
people on there.
Yep. Absolutely.
So,
I am glad that there's IT people on this board. I really am.
Yep.
Otherwise, I would question that.
And obviously from the county side, we've also got Steve and Monty and stuff like that, so.
We're there, you bet.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll make a motion to appoint the members of the Benton County Broadband Committees as presented, and to authorize a $60 per diem and mileage reimbursement for those designated as community members.
I'll second.
Sorry, I didn't mean to make the motion.
motion's been made and seconded to appoint the listed committee members to the Benton County Broadband Committee and get a per diem and mileage. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you, Monty.
Thanks, Monty.
Thank you to commissioners too for grabbing a hold of that. The general.
I can tell you, there's two commissioners here that are very happy that used to.
Oh, yeah.
Commissioner meeting updates.
Oh, we're not done yet.
Yeah, we got the other one
Oh,
done.
we did.
Yeah, we
Okay.
did the other one.
Sorry.
We moved her up.
That's right. Nothing
Nothing?
I can go.
that I remember.
So, we had, a bunch of, obviously, budget meetings, we don't need to go into those. BEP, I did cover for our BEP. That was a very good committee. I mean, that was the first time I really got to participate in one that wasn't for everybody. So you see a lot of things in there. They're definitely got their feelers out. They're applying for grants. I'm learning more about that brownfield every day, it seems like. So a lot of things in there that are coming up for businesses and you know, there's a lot of things that you can't talk about outside of that meeting. So I'll stop there before I say something. So, I did have Commissioner Johnson and I, as well as Monty and Mr. Bristol and Amanda. A bunch of us sat on the 7 West Broadband roundtable. I thought it was a roundtable. I didn't know I had to present, so I had to really kick things up kick things up a little bit. But I'll tell you, it was a very good. I hope they continue to do something like that for updates on what counties are doing, because we were on there with Wright, Sherburne, Stearns, and Benton, and everybody has the same issues. And I'm curious to see where they fell in with their townships. With us now hopefully having all of our townships that applied for the ARPA money, because I think Sherburne was having that same problem with townships actually applying. So one of the things that came out of that meeting was they had said that Benton County, they had showed a statistic that Benton County, I believe, was 92% served. And it wasn't even close to our 40% that was put together by Finley. You know, I think 92 is, and like I said in the broadband meeting, 92 is way high in being served, but 40 was, I think, way low on being under, you know, from the Finley engineering side. So hopefully it falls somewhere in between. So that was the roundtable. I thought Amanda did very good. There was multiple speakers on that. So going into our broadband meeting, I just covered that. We wanted to get everybody back together and get things moving. One of the things that came out was obviously what we just did is the community involvement, the IT directors and all of that. So we just took action on all of that. The other thing that was brought up, and I think I brought this up, is we need to get moving on engineering quotes for the fiber to Foley project. So hopefully we can get that going. And
Steve is on the case.
Awesome. Cool. So hopefully we can get that going, so maybe the spring we could get that in the ground.
Jarrett, I didn't mean to break in, but talking about broadband, so with all of our townships involved, how many of them do you think will be joining us in the broadband besides Watab?
I think, I'm gonna say maybe 6-ish, but I think when we do this, the careful thing that we had to do is, this isn't the county taking their money, this is making sure they apply for it so that they have the option to spend the money on whatever is applicable for their township.
Right, and I could speak to, like, for Granite, I learned the other evening that I didn't know Granite Ledge received, or they qualified for 70,000. They've already identified 50 of it to be used for their broadband in their township. Because, for example, Benton Telco is already in their township.
Okay.
They're just expanding on that opportunity, which is exactly what the money was
What we
for.
want.
Yep, absolutely.
And I think Watab's obviously looking at that. I think they have some other infrastructure things that they're looking at using their money for.
So the next question is then, so if they're using their money in their townships, what they have to anyway for their broadband, that just lessens the area for the county to do, correct?
Absolutely, and I think that's why it was so important that, you know, I believe we threw Maywood out, for example, $110,000 would potentially reach 65 to 70 homes.
Yep.
Which is fairly significant.
Yeah, especially in the township side, so.
So at that point, if our idea was to spend 3.2 mil on broadband, that would just lessen that number then, correct?
Correct.
Certainly should.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank
And
you
I
for
think-
that clarification.
And a lot of this will come out when Finley is completed with their study. It'll show exactly where they're at, and they said they could break it up into whatever we need at townships, township lines, you name it. It's endless in what they can do. But we'll have a lot more clarity in November where it all lies and what we can do.
And I agree, and I think at that point, again, to continue in the back of your mind of thinking of what that budget's gonna be for broadband.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
of this ARPA money, realizing again, we've already tapped into it a little bit with some offset on our levy.
Yeah.
So just, and I know Monty, and we've talked about kind of keeping a running spreadsheet of that, and so this is coming pretty fast now, and so we're gonna have to have some discussion about what the real dollars are we're looking at committing to broadband.
Right.
Absolutely, and just to elaborate on that, who's it from, Chris Kenichi? From Finley? He threw out some numbers of houses and stuff like that need to be served or that are underserved and I've done some math and I'm telling you, I think we're set up pretty good to get this completed.
Okay.
So, I feel very confident.
And I would also expand on that, Jared, based off of our 7 West Regional Broadband Committee. It sounds like Benton County is probably at the forefront of a lot of this, and I think, you know, hats off to you and our committee. I mean, we've moved ahead pretty fast versus other counties.
Absolutely, and I gotta say thanks to the people before us too, because broadband has been on their
Sure,
on their horizon. It's just that they weren't blessed with some additional
money.
funds. Yeah, you know.
And the technology you brought to the board too.
I think
Can't do
and
stuff without money, right?
and honestly, the city of Foley needs a lot of credit because they helped propel this. Whether it turned out that way or not, it got us way down this road.
And a lot of good discussion.
Yep, absolutely. So that's the broadband meeting. The Emergency Services Board, that deals with all the radios. That's just a lot of dollars and budgets, and it's time you can't get back. But it's very in depth, and I'll tell you, Micah Myers for the City of St. Cloud, when it comes to the radios, he knows what he's talking about.
He does.
And it's good to hear him, and he chairs a lot of these committees and gives a lot of the reports, so. Then the township meeting, obviously we were all there. I thought it went very good. There was some great speakers there. Both legislative people I thought had great things they talked about. The township,
He was really good.
the manager,
Yeah.
his speech, and then I think Nadine and Christine prodding the townships and stuff like that, because this is their money. If not,
Right.
other people are gonna get to spend this, and they don't have to spend it in the for things that we want. They spend it on what works for them, and I think they did some math down the road for loss of funds and stuff like that they can recoup for their townships, so. That's really what I got.
That was really nice to see the other officials step in to help the township officials out. Let's face it, a
Yep.
lot of them don't have emails, they don't have internet, they don't have the abilities to do it, and I think that's part of their frustration. And so we had people step up and do that, so that was very good.
And I think now we're more well representative with Frank Hard being a district director. We've never had that in Benton County before.
Okay, well, it certainly can hurt.
No, it can't hurt, and he'll take it to heart.
And Christine Sherbing stepped up huge to the point where she's willing to offer services to help reporting and you name it for these townships, which it's tough when half of them probably don't have computers or don't know how to do it.
Right.
I wouldn't know how to
Or
report some of
quite
this stuff.
frankly, they don't have broadband.
Yeah, yeah.
So, okay. All right, well, it's kind of nice to follow Jared because him and I sit on a few different committees together and he kind of covers a lot of the things already, but I'll just touch on a couple other things. Planning Commission, obviously, we approved that minor plat the other night and brought that to the board today for approval. We also had a conditional use permit for another alternative flood proofing elevation up in Langola, so that was approved at the Planning Commission also. I attended my first RAC meeting, Water Resource Advisory Committee meeting, last week. Learned a couple things that I wasn't aware of. The Rum River Watershed, really a very small part of Benton County, up in Granite Ledge and Maywood Township. They mentioned that the county will be doing quite a few RIM projects in there, Reinvest in Minnesota projects in those areas. And that is property tax areas, but obviously at a very low rate. But still stays on the tax rolls. Draft plans for the new Mississippi River St. Cloud watershed plan, $460,000 estimated in cost. Also, I believe, is that the one, or was it the rum that was 420 pages in length?
400.
Yeah, 400 pages in length, so, interesting. What I did, thought was interesting also, the Mississippi Rivershed St. Cloud plan covers 66% of our county.
Right.
So,
As we go,
Yeah.
as we go forward on that, I had discussion yesterday, and I'll bring that forward. I won't bring it forward today on what some other cities and counties have done when it's, a watershed that's as large as some of these are, so.
there was some discussion from the RAC too about what the county board's involvement is going forward as far as representation from the RAC versus One Water, One Plan. If they need to be combined, if they do need to be separate, RAC maybe would be quiet for a year or two, so I'm not sure where that's gonna go, but there's gonna be some discussion brought from Soil and Water, I think, to us about how that will work.
Yeah, and we have to remember that we have to have a water plan done every so many years too.
Sure.
And we need them people to do that.
Yep. I think that's all I had, thank you.
Okay, Beth?
And I haven't had any meetings since the
Okay.
last time.
I've got a couple, naturally at the third Tuesday, we had our library board meeting. One thing, couple of impressive things is that, after I became finance chair and we had a finance director that I didn't really think was, I don't think he did a whole lot, and then he ended up resigning for personal reasons. And now we got Jennifer, and she's back at it. We are moving to local banks for our investments. They're gonna try and get at least one bank in every county, as long as they're FDIC insured. Before, we were in San Diego, California, and Massachusetts, and all he did is went to the Magic Fund. He just plugged it into the Magic Fund, and I questioned it, and I never got any results. And they always go, "Oh, Aaron's doing a good job," Well, then he had to resign for personal reasons, and we get this new person, and she's like, "Why are we all over the board? Why are we in all these different banks?" So we approved 2 banks in Benton County last time, a couple in Stearns County, a couple in Wright County, and Sherburne County. We have yet to get one in Morrison and Todd counties, but she wants, and they gotta be competitive. If they can't be competitive, and the rates, what she gave us versus what we were getting was way up compared to what, it was almost, a 1%. We were at 0.02% on some of this Magic Fund money, and we use the Magic Fund, don't we? Yeah.
To some extent, sure.
Yeah, and so I was surprised about that. And then the other part was we had 2 closed sessions that went on forever. It was like, God, it was
Painful.
started at 5:30 and I was home at about 20 to 10. This meeting went on forever.
Those are brutal.
They are brutal, yeah, so that was there. And then actually we had the township meeting, and thanks to the BEP. I'll maybe call it more often now.
Yeah.
So, and then yesterday I had a meeting for AMC and the DNR. We have our they're gonna have quarterly meetings for this now, for some of this discussion. It must have come through AMC at their deal. We were talking a little bit about this, the chronic waste disease, and 2 counties have now banned any more deer farms, St. Louis County and Beltrami County. And there's talk about buying out these deer farms because the DNR is really afraid that the license numbers in Beltrami County for archery have gone down significantly, and they think people are not interested in hunting when there's a chronic waste disease running around. And they've all started at deer farms. And it's, so now they're recommending double fencing and everything else. But I got the impression from the assistant DNR commissioner that fencing doesn't really do it because the deer farm people are not really good at keeping their fences up. We have escapes and we have, everything else. So that was one of the things. Another one that came about was the public waters, and I know we don't have a lot of issues with that, but some counties have the public waters inventory. There's 2 lawsuits before the state, one out of Renville County where they say a ditch is a public water, and now they want to have control of that. So, and it's moving forward. They said they'll keep us updated on that. Another interesting one was that AIS, aquatic invasive species, some areas is looking to now have a regional deal because some counties, and we ain't quite so bad, but some counties can't get rid of that much money, so they want to have a regional area where they can spend this money instead of just a county deal. The counties are struggling with somebody to do it, so that they're going to more regional deal. And then the DNR is moving towards online bidding for some of their property or some of their land they have for sale. And they said it's working out really well because they're getting more money than they were asking.
Yep.
I mean, they bid it up. And the other part that they're gonna try to move to online is timber sales. Timber sales have been kind of cut and dried, you know. You're a harvester and you give me what you want, and they work behind the scenes and say, yeah, you know, you take this one and I'll take that one. And now they went to online bidding, and that price has gone up, you know. So, and they're gonna meet quarterly from on now to make this happen.
Yeah, I want to thank them for that.
Yeah, yeah, right, so do I. And that was all that I had. Commissioner concerns, anybody have any concerns that we need to address? Set committee of the holes?
We have just one addition.
Okay.
It's the AMC District 5 meeting, October 25th, 8 a.m., Sherburne County Government Center. October 25th at 8 a.m. And that's it. That's all we had for new ones.
Where's that at?
Where's that at?
Sherburne County.
County governments.
Elk River. Most likely it's gonna be in their county
Beautiful room.
board room, most likely, yeah.
Yeah, it's a beautiful room.
Lot like ours.
Yeah.
Yep. The new one, the new county board.
The new boardroom, or they have that new conference room too.
They've got lots of new stuff, yeah.
They got a
but
lot of new
I'm- Yeah, I would start out at the boardroom, I'm guessing. So.
Okay.
I have written down for a cow tomorrow.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Tomorrow at 9 a.m., that's the meeting on space issues, and two folks from Vetter Johnson will be here
So I'll have to leave at 10 o'clock.
to do the closing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll probably have to leave with you too. Not to go to the closing, though.
So that, yeah, just that one new cow to add. So,
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to approve the cow as presented.
Second.
Motion been made and seconded to set the cows. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Close.